Hilchis Nizkei Mamon Perek Achadoser. Kama hua kefer. How much do you have to pay for kefer? No, the din is that a sheir amud that kills a person, so the sheir amud gets killed, and also he has to pay kefer. The kefer is instead of the misa b'dei shamayim, which the bailim should have had. And memela, the kefer is instead of the misa b'dei shamayim. So kama hua kefer. Kemei shiro adayonim shu dmei hanereg. The dayonim assess what was the dmei hanereg, and hakel fishavi shel nereg shenamar. V'nosen pidyon nafshei kechel asher yushas olav. So the Pashas Lashon Rambam, it sounds like the pasuk v'nosen pidyon nafshei kechel asher yushas olav is telling us that it's dmei hanereg. But the Pashas in Gemara it comes that fakir that the pashtus of the pasuk v'nosen pidyon nafshei means the pidyon nafshei of the Baal Hasher. Except we have a limud to teach us that you give pidyon nafshei the dmei hanereg, but l'churi in the pasuk itself it doesn't say dmei hanereg. The only thing that says clearly in the pasuk is kechel asher yushas olav, that it's assessed by the dayonim. So it could be the Rambam saying the shenamar on the kamishiro adayonim. This is kamu hakefer kamishiro adayonim shu dmei hanereg and hakel fishavik shel nereg, and that he says shenamar l'churi is only on the prat that is kamishiro adayonim. Then the Rambam continues with the kefer havodim, ben gedolim, ben ktanim, ben schorim, ben nekevis, regardless of what the matzav of the eved was, regardless of what the real value of the eved was, hu haknas hakotzev b'teira, which is shleishim sel kesef yofa, shleishim sel of kesef, and in kesef sometimes there's certain kesef which is mixed with necheshes, that 1/8 is kesef and the 7/8 are necheshes. So we say no, it has to be sel kesef yofa. Kesef Yofa means that it should be Shleishim Sela of pure silver. Now, in the Rambam, there's a chiddush that connects the Shleishim Shel Evet to Kofer. There's the Pashtos, the Shleishim Shel Evet is a din knas. It's not a din Kofer. There's different dinim of knas and Kofer, when again made of a knas potter. And the Rambam is saying, no, that the Shleishim, there's a din of Kofer, and the Kofer is Kechela Sheyushas Olav. So that's assessed by the Dayanim. And then there's another kaifer when a behemoth kills a evet, so there's a din of misa b'dei shamayim. There's also a din of misa b'dei shamayim, just like by Adam. However, the difference is only the kaifer by Adam is assessed according to the value of the nerag. Mashen k'mayan evet, it's not assessed by the value of the nerag. It's shleishim sela kesev yofa. Bein she'oy evet shava meyamona, bein she'ini shava ela dinner. That's din number one. So we're learning there's a din of kaifer, which is the Dmei HaNerag, and there's a din of Kefer of an Eved, which is Shleishim Sela. Then the Ram continues, V'chol HaMu'ukev get Shichr. In other words, you have an Eved that's really, he's no longer the property of the Odin, really. In other words, the Odin can't be mishtabed with him, but on the other end, he's not yet free. The Moshel HaMafker Avdei. HaMafker Avdei is Yotzel Lecheirus, but Tzorah get Shichr. And Al Derech Zel, the Moshel HaMapel Shein Avdei. So it's also he's yotzel lecheres, but it's tzara get shikr. Is v'chol ha'mu'ukev get shikr is ainly knas. There's no knas. That says the odin doesn't get the knas. Ha'il ve'ainli odin, so the odin doesn't really get the knas. So in other words, the odin gets the knas for his evet, but since he's be'emes no longer an evet, just that he's mu'ukev get shikr, ainly knas. Shaharei yotzel lecheres. So here the Rambam says it b'pshitus that it's 100%. That ain't knas, that the Odin doesn't get the knas from the Baal Hasher. My says that the Rambam later, the Maggid Mishnah points out that the Rambam later on, the Chevel Mazik, over there it's also Negeya, Benegeya, a Chavola, if an Odin was Mapel Shinei, and then he was Mapel Enoi. So over there, because he was Mapel Shinei, so Memele goes out Lecherus, but he still Tzorah get Shichr, and Lepel, then he was Mapel Enoi, so Memele Lechure, so if he would have been already a Ben Chayrin, so then the Odin would have to pay him. But since he's not really Mamash Ben Chayrin because he's Mu'ukim Ben get Shikr, so the Odin doesn't have to pay him. But on the other end, if the Eved is Teifus from the Odin, so Emitzim the Odin, because there's a suffix in Gemara whether or not someone that's Mu'ukim get Shikr is entitled to the Dmei of the Einai, after he was already Yotza, because of Shinei, so he's entitled to Dmei Einai. And al derech zeh b'negei kefer. It's a suffix whether or not the Odin is entitled to kefer. So the shaila is that over there the Rambam clearly pashkins im tofas im mitziim miyodi. Here the Rambam says the pashtus that he ein li knas hail ve'ein li Odin shari yotzel l'shikhr. But the Maggid Mishnah says, but over here also Im tafas a mitziyim miyodi because it's a suffix. But lepel, the Rambam doesn't say that. The Rambam doesn't say clearly that it's a suffix and therefore im tafas a mitziyim miyodi. Halacha beis lemi noisten hakofer liyershe hanerek. So someone is killed and you have to pay kofer. So that kofer goes liyershe hanerek v'mhemes isha. Now the yerush of a isha is her husband. But her husband only yarshins the money that she owns. But over here, this money, this not money that she really owned. It's money that she's getting als kofer. In other words, the kofer, she was killed. And as a result of that, the yarshim get kofer. So over here, since she never owned this money, b'chayiv of the Baal, and she only entitled to the kofer through being killed, so therefore, this kofer goes to the yarshi of the isha mitzad atzma, not mitzad the Baal. It says, Heim Nachamol. Isha is a kefer liyersha miyavia. Her yarsha miyavia ve'ena lebal. Because lepil, the Baal only is entitled to the money which she had, not to the money which she's getting als kefer. Now hemes misha chetzi eved v'chetzi ben chedem. So nesen chetzi knas l'rabbi, because he's a chetzi eved, so he's entitled to chetzi knas. But v'chetzi o'acher is really entitled to whoever the yorish is. But there's no yarshim. Is roy litin ve'imi yikachenu, and that passes also all that as a ger. If you have a ger shein liyarshim, you have a share that killed a ger. So mele is roy litin abalapil. There's no one to give it to because there's no yarshim. So mele you don't give it to. So al that as this chetzi ben cheren, there's no yarshim and mele, so you don't give it to anybody. Halacha gimel share shenogach isha v'yotzu yuladel. So there's a din we'll learn b'negei chayvel b'chaveri, someone that was chayvel b'isha and yotzu yuladel. So over there, you have to pay the Dmei Vladis to the Baal. But over here, B'negei HaSher, there's no such a din. That's the Sher Shenogach Isha, V'yotzu Yolada, Afal Pisha Hu Muad Liget, we're talking about a Muad, Aber HaBailim, the Bailim of the Sher, P'turim in Dmei Vladis, Shalichiv V'teire B'dmei Vladis Elul Adam. Adam HaMazik, there's a Chiv Dmei Vladis, like we'll learn, Ki Notzu Anoshim, Masha'inkin, a Sher HaMazik, there's no din of Dmei Vladis. Now that's talking about if you're Mazik, Isha Bascherim. So over here, it's not a din of Dmei Vladis, it's the value of the shivcha. So memele nogach shivcha v'yotzi yolada is mishal of Dmei Vladis shezek mishnogach chamer mu'uberes. Just like if someone would, a share would be negech a chamer mu'uberes and yotza vlad, so you'd have to pay how much the chamer was lost its value because of losing the vlad. So over here also, a person owns a shivcha knainis, and now the shivcha knainis lost her value because of the vladis, so mainly you have to pay for the vladis. V'imhoya tam, so mishalem chatzit mei vladis megufi is bekitzer. Normally we say a share that's mazik, a woman, and yotzav v'ladeh, there's no din mei vladis. Mashenkin, if she's a shivcha, so mainly over there is a din of mei vladis. Halachei ketzin shabanesa, how do you assess the shivcha of the mei vladis? Ein kam hoyse shivcha zu shava kshahoyse mu'beres, v'kam yishava ata, and the nation lebala to you give to the bailim of the shivcha pchasi chetzia, depending if it's a muad or a tam. That's talking about if it just was yotzev l'adel. However, v'mheim is a shivcha, so then there's a din of the kofer of the shleishim shalava. We're talking about a shivcha knainis. So if the share was hemis an isha and there's a chi of koifers, and the koifers we learned before is the shleishim shalavet. So memela that kofer covers everything. That kofer covers everything. Just like we said, that even if you're dealing with an eved which is shava meyamon, but nevertheless the kefer you give him the shleishim selas, all that is over here. V'imhemes hashivcha mishalem hakefer hakotzer b'teir b'lvad k'mei shabiyan. Halacha vav share shenischam lebehema v'nogach es ha'adam. A share that didn't intend on killing a person, he was nischam lebehema and he gored adam. So lepelazei afal pish im hem misei potter. If the behemoth killed the adam, so he would be potter. The din of a share that gets killed because of being negecha adam is only if he had intention of killing him. Only if he had intention of killing him. K'mesha b'yarnu. However, im chavel bei lepel if he was chayvel in an adam, even though he had no intention of being chayvel in him, he had intention of being chayvel in a behemoth, is chayiv b'nezik. V'im tamu mishalem chati nezik megufe. V'im muad nezik shalom. In other words, since he had intention to be negech, he goes into the gather of keren. In other words, there's a mitzvah of shem v'regel, which also has no intention. A regular mashal is derech hiluchis. He has no intention to be mazik. Over here we're talking about he has intention to be mazik, and he goes into the parsha of keren. But on the other hand, he doesn't have to have intention to be mazik the adam in order to be chayiv b'niskei adam. He could have an intention only of being mazik a behema, and by accident being mazik ha'adam, and lepeil b'chayev b'nizkei adam. Halacha zayin. Sher tam shehemis v'hizik. A sher tam was hemis, and then he was mazik. Now lepeil, a sher tam shehemis is supposed to get killed. A sher tam was his hizik, you get migufei. Now obviously if you're going to kill the sher, so memela the sher is going to become asur bano, and memela there won't be a possibility of taking anything migufei. So memela, so that's the din is don nesi din nefashis. You don him because since he killed someone, so he's supposed to get killed, and at that point in time he's going to become asur bano, and then they ain't don nesi din imaminus. There's no point in being dan din imaminus because lepil there's no one to get it from. There's no one to get it from because a sher tam is only neitel migufei, and there's no migufei because lepil he's asur bano. However, umuad shehizik shehem is v'hizik. A muad sai killed and sai was mazik. So a muad is supposed to. So you also have to be dan him lemisa because he was hemis, and you also have to be dan about the hazik because hizik. Now over here, lepel you could be dan about the hizik first, and then the person is going to have to pay from mi'aliyah. He has to pay from his own money, and then you'll be dan din nefashis. Now, if you're going to first be dan din nefashis, and then you're going to be dan din imaminus, so we learned before that when a person owned a behema, and that behema was mazik as a share amud, and then lepel after that the behema is no longer his. He was hifkir, he was higdish. The behema is no longer his. So then you can't go ahead and assess how much the person owns for this behema. It has to be that he has a bailim b'tchila v'atseif. And if he doesn't have bailim b'tchila v'atseif, so there's no assessing, there's no chiyuv. So memela, this muad that was hizik, and this muad now was also you're being dan din in the fashis. So if you're going to be dan din in the fashis, and you're going to establish that this muad is usher is chayiv, has to be killed, has chayiv skila. So memela the behema at that point in time becomes worthless, becomes usher bano. If it becomes usher bano, it's keilu the bailim don't own it. If it's keilu the bailim don't own it, so memela there's no way of sitting down and being dan din imaminus. Because lepel, once the bailim don't own it, so there's no dan din imaminus. So memela over here is done in umuad shehemis v'hizik. If you have a muad shehemis v'hizik, is done in esi din imaminus. So first you dan din imaminus in order to establish that he owes the money, and memela he'll pay mi'aliyah. And then v'chezim v'don din esi nefashis. Now kadmu v'donu din nefashis tchila. If lepel you went ahead and you were dan din nefashis, so then lepel chayzrin v'don nesi din imaminus. Then there is chayzrin v'don din imaminus. Now the emes is really, we said before that there's no din imaminus. He is not really mechuyev to pay anymore because lepel, since he's no longer the owner, he's not really considered the owner because it's isuri ano, so it's not really shalei. So therefore he's not really considered the owner. So therefore you can't be done that he owes to pay for this muad. But so this is, I mean, the Mefarshim was saying that sedin derabanan, sedin derabanan. So din the Rabbana that you don't want that a person that had a share amud and he was mazik, you should get away with it. Really, what's supposed to happen is that you should be done din in mominus and then done in the fashis. So if you were done din in the fashis and then and lepeil, now lechuri you can't be done din in mominus. From deswegen you should be done din in mominus. But on the other end, the dan din in mominus is not going to accomplish that you could actually take the money from the bailam because sof kol sof, as we said, since it's no longer his, you can't take the money from him. So you could only take the money from the share, which means, like the Rambam is going to say, like a din derabbanan, you're going to go postpone. You're postponing the killing of the share. Really, the share should be killed because you already done din nefashos. And he's aser bano. But rather than killing him right away, you're going to let the share do work of charisha for the tzorech of the nizak of the person that really the bala share should be paying. So he's going to get paid from the share itself, so to speak, from the share itself, and Memela, once he gets paid from the charisha of the share itself, so then he's going to be able, then you're going to go ahead and kill the share. That's what the Rambam says. Let's read again. Let's start again from the beginning of Allah Chazayin. Share tam shehemis v'hizik. He was hemis and he was hizik. It's not in the really what the seder was. So the din is done nesi din nefashos. So you go ahead and be done din nefashos. Vein done nesi din imaminus. Because lepeil, even if you're going to be done din imaminus, so after that you're going to be done din nefashos, and once you be done din nefashos, so memela you're not going to be able to take the money anyways because lepeil he's mishtala migufe and it becomes asur bano. That's when he gave share tam. However, a muad shehemis v'hizik, a muad that was hemis v'hizik, is done in nesi din imaminus. First you done din imaminus, and v'chezim v'doni din nefashos. because you don't want to be dan din in the nefashos first, because once you'll be dan din in the nefashos, you can't really be dan din in mamonis, because it's no longer his. However, kodmu v'donu din in the nefashos tchila. So now it's chayzu v'don nesi din in mamonis. Now you are dan din in mamonis. But now when you're chayzu v'dan din in mamonis, that chayzu v'dan din in mamonis is not going to accomplish that you could actually be teveya from the Bala Sher, because the Bala Sher wasn't his anymore when you made the Dan. It's only going to be Peil that you could be able to mon from the Sher itself. Where are you going to get paid from? Where is the Nizek going to get paid from if it was Donu Din in the Nefashos, the Chazer with Donu Din in Mamonis? If it's Kodnu with Donu Din in the Nefashos, and then Chazer with Donu Din in Mamonis, Min Hashvach Sheishbiach B'Rediyosei Achar Shenigmar Dinei. With the Shvach, you're going to use the share and work with the share until the nizik gets paid, the hezek that it was damaged, and then you go ahead and kill the share. Why? Shekiv and shenigmar dina l'skila. Once it was nigmar dina l'skila, ein le'bailim she is chayvim and nezakav. So since ein le'bailim she is chayvim and nezakav, so the bailim can't become mechuyev after donua din in the fashes to go ahead and be dan din imams at the bailim she is chayv. But there's only a special din that you could go ahead and be mechayev the share itself. The mechayev the share itself, that the share itself has to pay. Now, donu din in the fashes ubarach. If lepel they were dan din in the fashes ubarach, and now lepel there's still a din of din imamus, but lepel right now, anyways, you're not going to be able to take the din imamus. Is ain't done din imamus. There's no point in being dan din imamus. The whole purpose of being dan din imamus right now, even though they were dan din in the fashes, in other words, if the bailim was still there and you weren't yet dan din in the fashes. So lepel, you always done on the bailim to establish the chiyuv, to establish the chiyuv. Could be you can't be done on the bailim because the share is not there, so it's a technical reason. But lepel, there's a thing you want to paskin that the bailim owes the money, because if it's a question of him owing the money, lepel over here the bailim aren't going to owe the money. It's only a question, so to speak, the share is going to owe the money. He'll be able to collect the money from the share. Now, to be able to collect the money from the share, if the share is here, you'll be done in order to establish that you collect the money from the share. But if the share is not here, there's no point in being done that you could collect the money from the share. So even though you're not exercising now the din in the fashes because he was barach, but on the other end, you're not going to go ahead and be done din imamus. Halacha tes. Share shehei misas adam, and then the hikdishi ba'olov. A share killed someone, and then the bailam will magdishim. Is eini kaddish. V'chein mefkire, if the bailam will mafkirim, is eini mufkir. Machre, if they sold it, eini machar. Hichzire shemer leba'olov, a person, a shemer had a chiyav shmira, and now this share was a hemus, and now you want to be mekayim yechiyav hashavet to the mafkid with this share, which is now a share which is hemus adam, and it was already a psak din, a hemus adam, is eini chazara, that's not called a chazara. And shachate, and if you shechted the behema, is asur bano. So there's a whole list of things that we're saying about the share, and the side of all these dinim is because it's asur bano. Since the share is asur bano, so therefore hikdishi ba'olav is eini kaddish because it's not really yours anymore, and if kirei is eini mufkir because it's not really yours anymore, and machre eini machar because it's not really yours anymore, and if zim sheir ba'olav also because it's not really something which has any value. And shachte, if you shechted is psari asabano, because asabano. Now, b'medvar mamurim, all these dinim are only achar shenigma din l'skila. If there was already a gemar din l'skila, and now you went ahead and did any of these things, so we're saying that hikdisha doesn't help, and if kira doesn't help, and machri doesn't help, and if zir shemel ba'olav doesn't help, and l'peil if shachte it's asabano. Aval achalei nigma din l'skila. If a person has a share which was haragodim, and l'peil there was no yet gemar din l'skila. Is a Migdisha, if he goes ahead and makdish it before there was a Gemar din is Mugdash. V'mifkirei arei mufkir, a machrei arei is a machur. And if zir l'shem l'ba'olav, arei is a mugzer. And v'kadav v'shachti is arei is a mutter b'achila. Because until there was a Gemar din that is chayiv misa, so it doesn't become asur bano. Halach, now, the Maisa is later on in Hilchas Gzela, it's going to be a din that if a person steals a behema, and then lepel this behema became a sher haniskel, they became a share on this. You weren't sekel, it was yoitzeli sokel. So the Gazlan could tell the Bailam, which he stole it from, Harei shalach lefanecha, and Memele he was Mekayim Eschiyav Hashava. He was Mekayim Eschiyav Hashava when he says Harei shalach lefanecha, even though it's already a share on Iskel. So the question is over here, L'chura the Shemer also has a Chiyav Hashava to the Mafkid. So over here, the Rambam says clearly that if Lepel, this share became a share haniskel, so the shamer, Hirziri shamer lebol of Eina Chazora. And he can't say Harei Shalach Lefanecha. The question is, what's the difference between a gazlan and a shamer? The Maisa is that Be'emes, a share haniskel, is a hezek she'ein nicker. Now, when you look at this share that was niskel and it had a psagdin, so you look at the share right now, you don't really see that it was seikel and that it had a psagdin, that it's chayav misa. You don't see it b'shas maisa. But while it's standing at Bezdin, and Bezdin is pasking that it's a share niskel and it's chayav skila, at that point in time, it's clear that he's chayav misa. It's not a hezek she'ein nicker. At that point in time, it's nicker. So this is a shamer has chayav shmira. So he has a chayav shmira. Now, while this behemoth is standing in Bezdin, and Bezdin is paskening that this behemoth is chayiv misa. So at that point in time, this behemoth became a share haniskel and it's a hezik nicker. So the mela for that matzif, the shamer is already chayiv, and later on when the shamer is going to try to return it, so he's not going to be able to help return it because lepel since while it was a hezik nicker, there became a chiyuv because he has a chiyuv shmira, and at that moment there became a chiyuv. So therefore, it's not going to help that the fact that he's going to return it later. Masha'in came a gazlan never had a chiyuv shmira. So a gazlan has a chiyuv hashava because lepel he was gazlan, and lepel right now when he's being meshivit, it's considered a hezek shein nikar. So he's mekayim his chiyuv hashava, and there was never a chiyuv b'shas the gemar din because that wasn't the chiyuv of the gazlan. The gazlan had a chiyuv b'shas gzela, and now he has a chiyuv hashava, and lepel he's being mekayim the chiyuv hashava. That's they bring from the Evan Ozl, even these further explanation. But that's the lepel. That's the din. The din is that a shomer, if a shomer accepts a behemoth to be shomer, and lepel this behemoth becomes a shera niskel, so he can't be mekayim his hashava of the shmira. He can't be mazul lebolov with a shera niskel. Mashenkin a gazlan. If a gazlan steals a behemoth, and then the behemoth becomes a shera niskel, so he could say harei shalach lefanach. Halacha yud. Share shalei nigmar dinei. Lepel, you have a share that killed, but it was lei nigmar dinei. Shenis'arev b'shvarim acherim kulam pturim. Lefi she'en goimrim dinei shel share el b'fnei hasher. And since lepel, we don't know which share is the share, even though all the share is standing over there, but we don't know which share is the share. So therefore, en goimrim dinei shel share el b'fnei hasher. Kidina adam, just like a adam, en goimrim dinei shel adam el b'fnei adam. Now, Nigmar Dinei, if lepel there was a share, there was Nigmar Dinei. So we know for sure that amongst these behemoths, there is a share haniskel. Afilu be'elav, there's 1,000 behemoths, it's called niskolim. And v'nigbarim, v'asurim ba'anoh, kidin behema niskel. So since it's a behemoth, it's choshev, it doesn't become bottle, and mele they all get killed. Halacha Yudalf. Para mu'bera she'misis adam, v'chein kol behemoth she'nevda ba'avera while she was a mu'beres. So we say the mu'beres was part of the killing act. The mu'beres was part of the act that did the avera, which because of that gets killed. Is harei ubra kameya, and therefore because hiva ubra nokha and hiva ubra nirba, and bepashas it comes out that if l'mashal this behemoth, which was a mu'beres, killed, and now you're going to go ahead and be done the behemoth l'skila, you'll be done the ubra also l'skila, because the behemoth and the ubra both killed. That's talking about if she was a mu'beres during the negicha. Now, Nocha v'himisa v'acharkach nesabra, she was Nocha without being a mu'beres, and then she became a mu'beres. So the question is, imachale nigmar dina, nisabra v'yolda kedem gemar din, lepel, there was no gemar din yet, she became a mu'beres after the negicha, and she also was yolda before the gemar din. So we have a behema, which was negeach, and then she became a mu'beres, and then she was yolda, but still there was no gemar din. So vlad mutter, so vlad is absolutely mutter. The fact that this Vlad came from a behemoth which was once Nokha and not yet had a Gmar Din is Beseder. However, Vim Yolda Acher Gmar Din, Lepel, the behemoth became Uberes after she was Nokha. And now she was Yolda, then she was Yolda, then she became a Uberes after she was Nokha. And then there was a Gmar Din that she should be killed. And Be'emes, when she's going to be killed, the Vlad will also be killed with her. But Lepel, before they killed her, the Vlad was born. There was never really the Vlad was never really the Negeach, because the Vlad was she became Uberes after the Nokha, and the Psagdin was really also only on the mother, not on the Vlad. Lepel, since the Vlad was at that point in time part of the mother, so the Psagdin was on the Vlad as well. So over here the din is Vlad the Aser, Sha'u B'Yerech Imei, because since B'Shas HaGmar Din, the psak din was on this mother, which included the vlad, even though it wasn't really specifically on the vlad, but it was on the mother, which included the vlad. So even now that the vlad is separate, we go back and we say, well, there was a gmar din on this vlad. This din, Bashta is a din derabbanan. That's the Mefarshim bring. It's a din derabbanan. The Ram doesn't say clearly this is a din derabbanan. But this din, that the vlad osir, shahu be'yarachimehu, is only a din derabbanan, because since there was a psak din on the mother, while the vlad was inside, so therefore you don't let the vlad that should remain alive. And then this ar of vlad zeh b'acherim is keintzim is kulam b'kipa achiyim musashom. And the way the Mefarshim explain that over here there was never a din mashal skila on this vlad. So in the case before when the vlad was negeach, so let's say if the vlad came out before you had a chance to kill the mother, so there's a chi of negich on the vlad, because the vlad was also a negech. Over here, the vlad was never a negech. The vlad wasn't a negech. It's just that when there was a psak din on the mother, at that point in time, the vlad was part of the mother. So if you would have been negech of the mother, you would have been negech together with the vlad. But now that the vlad is separate, so really, mikra the dinner, the vlad is not chayiv misa. But midrabanan, you don't let the vlad should be living. But on the other hand, there's no chi of skill on the vlad. So therefore, the Rambam says over here, "Koinsin is kulam l'kipa." Before the Rambam said kulam l'skolim, because when you have someone that's chayiv skila, and then it was nisarev in all of them, you give skila to all of them. That's what the Rambam said. Nisarev be'elef, you give all of them skila. Masha'inkin over here, there was never a chi of skill on this vlad. It's just that you don't let the vlad live. So Mamela, if it was nisarev in others, so then it's koinsin kulam l'kipa. Halacha Yud Gimel. Sher haniskal shehuz mo'edov. You have a sher haniskal, so you're paskin that the behemoth is chayiv skila, and now the Eidim became huzam, so the behemoth is not chayiv skila. So now kol hakedim beizocha. Since there was a matzah that this behemoth was chayiv skila, so the bailim bepashtos were miyayish from this bailim, from this sher. So therefore kol hakedim beizocha shari mitznigmer dinei hifkiru bailim. The bailim were mafker. In other words, basically they were miyayish from it. And therefore, that's a din hefker. Now, that's talking about stamazim. Let's say Adam came along and said that this share killed someone, and then later on they were huzam. However, idu sheba'olav rib'u, they said that the bailim were riveya this behema, and therefore that's why the behema is chayiv skila. And v'hizim is Adam alepel, he brought Adam to be mazim. Those Adam that said that he was ribu is hari asher lebolav. Over there, the share does belong to the bailim. Why? Because the reason Edus sheker of the Edom was about the Baal himself, the Baal Asher. Shekivan Shabal Yedeh Ba'atzmi Shlichotu v'She'elu Edus sheker is Vareu Miyachol Azimam, is therefore Lehifker. So if the Edom were about other people, so Yitaka didn't know that the Edom were liars. So the Pashas he assumed they were true, and therefore he didn't think that maybe someone's going to come and be mazim those Edom. Masha'inka, when they're saying Edus about him, that he was Rivea this Behema, so Mamela, he knows he wasn't Rivea the Behema. He knows these Edom are Shakranim. And he's hoping to be able to find Edom, which were be able to say Manu Yisam on these Edom when he's timing that he was Rivea the Behema. So Mamela, he was never Messiahish from the Behema.